The War Council chamber aboard the Galactic Command Vessel times Supremacy times hummed with alien laughter. Commander Korthax, a 7-foot-tall Zephyrian with crystalline scales that shifted colors with his mood, stood at the center of the gathering. His scales glowed bright orange with amusement as he projected the latest intelligence reports about Earth's military forces. "Look at these primitive weapons," Korthax said, pointing a clawed finger at the holographic display. The image showed a human soldier lying prone with what the database identified as a sniper rifle. They still use chemical propulsion. Bullets, can you imagine? The assembled military leaders from across the Galactic Federation erupted in fresh waves of laughter. The Andorians clicked their mandibles in their version of chuckling. The Vorthan representative's gelatinous form rippled with mirth. "My plasma cannons can vaporize targets from orbit," boasted General Thex of the Crimson Fleet. "Yet these humans hide in bushes with their little tubes that shoot metal pellets. How quaint." Admiral Nexara, her blue skin shimmering under the chamber's lights, added her own mockery. "Our shield technology renders projectile weapons obsolete. Even their most powerful rifles couldn't penetrate the personal barriers worn by our lowest infantry units." Korthax waved his hand, and the hologram shifted to show various human military units. "Intelligence suggests they place great value on these snipers. Apparently, they trained for years to hit targets at what they consider long range, perhaps 2 of their kilometers." His scales shifted to purple with condescension. "Our standard plasma rifles are accurate to 50 kilometers in atmosphere. Should we even bother with ground deployment?" asked Captain Vron, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. "It seems almost cruel to engage such primitives in surface combat. The Galactic Charter requires us to offer them the chance to surrender through conventional warfare before orbital bombardment," Korthax reminded them. "Besides, it will be educational for our younger officers to see how far military technology has advanced. Earth will serve as a living museum of outdated tactics." The briefing continued with more examples of Earth's seemingly primitive military doctrine. The aliens found particular amusement in humanity's continued use of camouflage, stealth tactics, and precision marksmanship. "They paint their faces," exclaimed Lieutenant Grix, barely containing his laughter, "as if our thermal sensors and bioscanners couldn't detect them instantly. And look at this." Korthax brought up another file. "They have something called ghillie suits. They literally cover themselves in plant matter to hide." "Plant matter?" The room dissolved into laughter again. What none of them noticed was the small notation in the intelligence files about Earth's Special Operations Forces and a particular unit designation that human military records barely mentioned: the Ghost Legion. The alien analysts had dismissed it as typical human military bravado, another colorful name for soldiers who ultimately relied on the same primitive projectile weapons. Far below on Earth, in a bunker hidden beneath tons of reinforced concrete and steel, General Harrison reviewed the alien broadcasts they had intercepted. The Galactic Command made no effort to encrypt their communications, so confident were they in their superiority. "They're laughing at us," reported Colonel Sarah Chen, her jaw tight with controlled anger. "Let them laugh," Harrison replied calmly. He turned to the figure standing in the shadows of the command center. "What do you think, Master Sergeant?" Master Sergeant Eric Volkov stepped into the light, his pale gray eyes betraying no emotion. He wore the subdued insignia of the Ghost Legion, a unit that existed in no official records and whose members were selected from the best snipers humanity had ever produced. But they were more than just expert marksmen. They were the inheritors of a tradition that stretched back through every war humanity had fought, refined and perfected through centuries of conflict. "I think," Volkov said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper, "they don't understand the first rule of warfare." Which is?" Chen asked. "The most dangerous weapon isn't the one with the longest range or the biggest explosion," Volkov replied. "It's the one your enemy doesn't see coming." Harrison nodded and turned back to the tactical display showing the approaching alien fleet. "The Galactic Command wants a ground war. We'll give them one. But not the kind they're expecting." "Sir," Chen interjected, "their shield technology. Our analysis shows that conventional rounds won't penetrate." A ghost of a smile crossed Volkov's weathered face. "Conventional rounds? No, But the Ghost Legion stopped using conventional rounds 50 years ago. He pulled a single cartridge from his pocket and set it on the table. It looked like a standard, .50 caliber round, but the bullet itself seemed to shimmer with an oily iridescence. Phase shift ammunition? Harrison asked. Among other things, Volkov confirmed. We've had decades to prepare for this possibility. While the world thought we were just maintaining traditional marksmanship skills for ceremony and sport, we were developing something else entirely. The alien fleet drew closer to Earth with each passing hour. On their ships, Galactic Command forces ran through simulations of the coming ground assault. Their computers predicted total victory within 72 hours. The simulations showed human forces being quickly overwhelmed by superior firepower, shields, and technology. Not one simulation accounted for an enemy that had spent 50,000 years perfecting the art of the kill. Not one considered that humanity's greatest military innovations had always come not from superior firepower, but from finding ways to turn an enemy's strengths into weaknesses. As the first alien dropships began their descent toward Earth's major cities, Volkov and his Ghost Legionnaires were already in position. Invisible to thermal imaging through specialized suits that had cost more to develop than small nations' entire military budgets. Undetectable to bioscanners through gene therapy that could temporarily alter their biological signatures. Armed with weapons that appeared primitive but incorporated technology reverse-engineered from crashed alien probes and refined through human ingenuity. The Galactic Command was about to learn why Earth's military still valued snipers in an age of plasma weapons and energy shields. They were about to discover that humans had taken their primitive art of marksmanship and transformed it into something that even their advanced civilization had never conceived. In his hidden position overlooking the primary landing zone, Volkov checked his rifle one final time. The weapon was a masterpiece of human engineering, a fusion of traditional ballistics and cutting-edge physics that the aliens' computers wouldn't even recognize as a threat until it was too late. Through his scope, he watched the first Galactic Command officers step out of their dropships, their scales and skin glowing with confidence, their personal shields shimmering in the morning sun. They stood tall and proud, secure in their technological superiority. Volkov's finger found the trigger. The Ghost Legion was about to introduce the Galactic Command to a very human concept: that in war, hubris kills more surely than any weapon. The morning mist clung to the ruins of what had once been Denver's business district. Commander Korthax surveyed the abandoned human city with satisfaction, his scales shifting to a pleased green color. The evacuation of civilians had been swift, humans fleeing at the mere sight of the Galactic Command's superior forces. "Establish the forward command post here," Korthax ordered, gesturing to a cleared area in the city center. "Their primitive weapons can't reach us from the surrounding buildings, and our shields will handle any desperate attempts they might make." His subordinates moved with practiced efficiency, setting up portable barriers and communication arrays. The personal shield generators each soldier wore hummed softly, creating a barely visible distortion in the air around them. These shields had been tested against every known projectile weapon in the galaxy. They could stop railgun slugs, plasma bolts, and even minor explosions. Lieutenant Zek approached, his forearms carrying various pieces of equipment. "Commander, we're detecting no human military presence within 50 kilometers. They appear to have completely abandoned the city." "Cowards," Korthax spat. "Send out patrol units, find their military forces and engage them. I want this planet subdued within the timeline High Command specified." 2 kilometers away, buried under rubble in a collapsed parking garage, Eric Volkov lay perfectly still. He had been in position for 18 hours, his body covered in a special polymer that defeated every form of detection the aliens employed. His breathing was so controlled that even his own heartbeat seemed to slow. This was the state Ghost Legionnaires called the Void, a form of battlefield meditation that made them functionally invisible. Through his scope, he watched Korthax issue orders. The alien commander stood in the open, completely confident in his technological superiority. Volkov made minute adjustments to his rifle, accounting for wind speed, atmospheric pressure, and the slight gravitational variance caused by the alien ship hovering overhead. The rifle itself was a work of art that had taken humanity's best weapons engineers 5 years to perfect. The barrel was composed of a carbon nanotube matrix that eliminated virtually all vibration. The firing mechanism used magnetic acceleration to boost the bullet to speeds that conventional chemistry couldn't achieve. But the real innovation was in the ammunition. Each bullet was actually a complex delivery system. The outer casing was designed to fragment at precisely the right moment, releasing a core that existed in a state of quantum flux. Human scientists had discovered that alien shield technology operated by creating a barrier in normal space-time. The phase shift rounds literally existed partially outside normal space for a fraction of a second, just long enough to pass through the shields as if they weren't there. Volkov's earpiece crackled softly with encrypted communications from other ghost legionnaires positioned throughout the city. They spoke in code phrases that would sound like random noise to anyone intercepting them. "Eagle has nested," came one voice. "Sniper 3 was in position." "Owl hunting," whispered another. "Sniper 7 had acquired targets." "Wolf waiting," Volkov responded, team leader holding for optimal moment. Back at the alien command post, Sub-Commander Thrax was growing impatient. "Perhaps we should simply bombard their military bases from orbit and be done with it," he suggested to Korthax. "And miss the opportunity to demonstrate our superiority in ground combat?" Korthax's scales flickered orange with annoyance. "No. When we return to the Galactic Council, I want complete combat recordings showing how easily we defeated their ground forces. It will serve as a lesson to any other primitive worlds that might think to resist us." At that moment, Captain Vron approached with a datapad. "Commander, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the surrounding buildings. Very faint, but..." He never finished the sentence. The sound was wrong. Not the sharp crack of a conventional rifle, but a whisper-soft whoosh, followed by a brief hum. Captain Vron's head snapped back, his multiple eyes widening in shock as he looked down at the hole in his chest. His personal shield flickered and sparked, but the damage was already done. Purple blood pooled beneath him as he collapsed. "Sniper!" someone screamed. Chaos erupted in the command post. Soldiers dove for cover, their training taking over. But their training was based on energy weapons that created visible beams or plasma weapons that left heat trails. There was nothing to indicate where the shot had come from. "Shields at maximum," Korthax roared. "Scan everything. Find that primitive." Another whisper of death. Sub-Commander Thrax spun and fell, clutching his throat. His shield generator sparked and died, the phase shift round having disrupted its power core as it passed through. Impossible! Korthax's scales were now flashing rapid colors. Fear, anger, confusion. Their projectile weapons can't penetrate shields. The Galactic Command soldiers fired wildly into the surrounding buildings with their plasma rifles, turning concrete and steel into molten slag. But the Ghost Legionnaires had already relocated, moving through prepared positions with practiced ease. From his new position, Volkov watched the aliens panic through his scope. He keyed his communicator. "Begin Phase 2. Across the city, other Ghost Legionnaires opened fire. Not the rapid, suppressing fire of conventional warfare, but precise, calculated shots. Each bullet found its mark. Officers, communication specialists, shield technicians. The aliens' technological advantage meant nothing when they couldn't see their enemy, couldn't predict where the next shot would come from. Lieutenant Zek tried to organize a retreat, screaming orders in his native tongue. A phase shift round took him in the center of his back, dropping him mid-sentence. The remaining soldiers began to run, abandoning their equipment in their desperation to escape. Korthax stood in the center of the carnage, his scales now a deep black of pure rage. "Face me!" he roared at the empty buildings. "Fight with honor, you cowards!" Volkov centered his crosshairs on the alien commander. For a moment, he considered the irony. The aliens had mocked humanity for hiding in bushes, for using stealth and patience instead of overwhelming firepower. They had laughed at Earth's snipers, calling them primitive and outdated. He squeezed the trigger. The phase shift round caught Korthax in the chest, punching through his personal shield as if it were tissue paper. The commander looked down in disbelief at the spreading green stain on his uniform. His legs gave out, and he fell to his knees. As his vision faded, Korthax heard something that chilled him more than the wound in his chest. Laughter. Human laughter. Coming from every direction, and nowhere at once. The Ghost Legion's psychological warfare specialists had installed speakers throughout the ruins, and now they broadcasted the same mocking laughter the aliens had shared in their war council. Within minutes, the entire command post was silent, except for the crackling of fires started by the aliens' own plasma weapons. 27 Galactic Command soldiers lay dead, including their entire command structure. Not one Ghost Legionnaire had been spotted, let alone injured. In orbit, Admiral Nexara watched the life signs of the ground team wink out one by one. Her blue skin had gone pale with shock. "How?" she whispered. "Their weapons are primitive. Their tactics are ancient." "How?" Her sensor officer looked up from his station, his voice trembling. "Admiral, I'm analyzing the attack pattern. Whoever did this. They're not just snipers. The precision, the timing, the psychological impact. It's like they've elevated killing to an art form." "Send down the heavy assault units," Nexara ordered. "Full mechanized battalion. Armor, air support, everything." "Admiral," the communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Put it through." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a human military officer, General Harrison. His face was calm, almost serene. "Admiral Nexara," Harrison said, "I believe you've met our welcoming committee. That was one team. We have hundreds more, scattered across every continent, in every city you plan to occupy. You mocked our snipers, called them primitive. But you failed to understand something fundamental about humanity." "And what is that?" Nexara asked, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. "We don't just adapt our weapons to new technology," Harrison replied. "We adapt our warriors. What you face today weren't just snipers. They were the product of 50,000 years of human warfare, refined and perfected. They are patience given form, death given purpose. They are the Ghost Legion, and they've been waiting for you." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Galactic Command vessel in stunned silence. Below on Earth, Eric Volkov was already moving to his next position. The aliens would come with heavier forces now, but that too was expected, planned for. The hunt had only just begun. The Galactic Command's mechanized battalion descended upon Earth like an iron rain. Hundreds of armored vehicles, their hulls gleaming with energy shields, thundered across the landscape. Attack craft filled the skies, their sensors sweeping every inch of ground. Admiral Nexara had committed a full third of her invasion force to hunting down the Ghost Legion. "Burn everything," she had ordered. "Leave no structure standing where they might hide. Force them into the open." For 3 days, the aliens systematically destroyed empty cities, forests, and mountain ranges. Their plasma cannons turned vast swaths of Earth into glass. They believed they were denying the human snipers their hiding places. They were wrong. Master Sergeant Eric Volkov lay buried 3 feet underground, breathing through a tube that emerged between 2 rocks half a kilometer away. The Ghost Legion had anticipated this response. Across the globe, hundreds of legionnaires waited in specially prepared positions, some buried, others in reinforced bunkers that appeared as natural formations to alien sensors, many in the vast cave systems that honeycombed Earth's crust. "Phoenix, this is Wolf," Volkov whispered into his throat mic. "Status report." One by one, his teams checked in. Despite the massive alien search operation, not a single Ghost Legionnaire had been discovered. General Harrison's voice crackled through on the encrypted command channel. "Wolf, satellite imagery shows their fleet has moved into low orbit to support ground operations. They've committed everything to finding you." "Understood, Phoenix. Are the special packages ready?" "Delivered to all teams 6 hours ago. The scientists say you'll only get 1 shot with each." Volkov smiled grimly. The special packages were humanity's answer to the alien fleet itself. Bullets designed not just to penetrate personal shields, but to disrupt the quantum field generators that powered larger systems. Each round had cost more than a fighter jet to produce, and they only had 300 of them. Above ground, Colonel Grix of the Galactic Command Ground Forces grew increasingly frustrated. His 8 eyes scanned multiple display screens, showing sensor data from across the continent. Still nothing, he snarled. How can they hide from every form of detection we have? Perhaps they fled off-world? Suggested his aide. Impossible. We're monitoring every launch, every aircraft. Grix slammed an armored fist on his command console. They're here. Somewhere. At that moment, alarms began blaring. Colonel, the sensor operator shouted. Energy spike detected. Everywhere. All around us. The Ghost Legion erupted from the earth like spirits of vengeance. Not just snipers now, but small fire teams equipped with the phase shift ammunition. They targeted the aliens' vehicles first, not trying to destroy the heavily armored machines, but taking out exposed sensors, communication arrays, and most importantly, the operators visible through viewports. Volkov rose from his buried position like a specter, his rifle already tracking. Through his scope, he saw Colonel Grix in the command vehicle, his multiple eyes wide with shock. The phase shift round took the colonel between his third and fourth eyes, and suddenly, the alien ground force was leaderless. But this was only the beginning. All ghost teams, execute long-shot protocol, Volkov commanded. Across the planet, specially positioned ghost legionnaires aimed not at ground targets, but at the sky. Their rifles, modified with extended barrels and enhanced magnetic acceleration, pointed at very specific coordinates. The special ammunition loaded, they waited for the synchronized countdown. In orbit, Admiral Nexara watched the chaos below with growing horror. Her ground forces were being torn apart by an enemy that seemed to materialize from nowhere. Pull them back, she ordered. Full retreat. We'll glass the entire planet if we have to. Her sensor officer suddenly went rigid. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the surface. Multiple locations. It's aimed at us. Impossible. Their projectile weapons can't reach orbit. The Ghost Legion fired as one. 300 phase shift rounds, accelerated to velocities that shouldn't have been possible with chemical propulsion, streaked skyward. To the aliens' instruments, they barely registered, tiny pieces of metal moving at impressive but ultimately harmless speeds. The ship's defensive systems, designed to intercept energy weapons and missiles, ignored them. The rounds reached the fleet and passed through their shields as if they didn't exist. But these special packages didn't target the ship's hulls. Instead, they sought out the quantum field generators that powered the vessel's primary systems. Admiral Nexara's flagship shuddered as explosions rippled through its power grid. Lights flickered and died. Shield generators overloaded and burned out. Artificial gravity failed, sending crew members floating. What's happening? Nexara screamed, clinging to her command chair. The humans. They've somehow disrupted our power systems. Her engineer reported in disbelief. Ships across the fleet are reporting similar failures. We're dead in space. On Earth, General Harrison watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. All fighter wings, launch immediately. The alien fleet is vulnerable. Hundreds of human aircraft, held in reserve for this moment, streaked toward the crippled alien vessels. Without shields or point defense, the advanced galactic command ships were suddenly vulnerable to humanity's primitive missiles and kinetic weapons. Admiral Nexara watched helplessly as her fleet was torn apart. Ships that could have conquered star systems fell to weapons they would have laughed at mere days ago. Her own flagship took hit after hit, its advanced armor no match for concentrated nuclear strikes without shields to protect it. How? She whispered as explosions rocked the bridge. We are the Galactic Command. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Her communications officer, one of the few still at his post, looked up with terror in his eyes. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only. Put it through, Nexara said weakly. Volkov's voice filled the bridge, calm and cold as Arctic wind. You asked how primitives could defeat you. You mocked our snipers, our patience, our dedication to the art of the precise kill. But you failed to understand that we evolved on a death world, Admiral. Every advancement we've made, every weapon we've created, every tactic we've developed, they were all forged in the crucible of our own survival. Another explosion shook the ship. Through the viewports, Nexara could see other vessels in her fleet breaking apart, their crews evacuating in escape pods that Earth's fighters carefully avoided targeting. We learned patience from persistence hunters who would track prey for days. Volkov continued. We learned precision from ancestors who had one chance to bring down game or starve. We learned to hide from predators that could smell fear and see heat. And when we met each other, we learned to turn these survival skills into the art of war. Please, Nexara gasped, her blue skin pale with loss of blood from shrapnel wounds. We surrender. Call off your fighters. The Ghost Legion doesn't take surrender, Admiral. But humanity does. Harrison's voice replaced Volkov's. Order your remaining ships to power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any vessel that attempts to flee or self-destruct will be considered a continued threat. With shaking hands, Nexara gave the order. Across the star system, the mighty Galactic Command Fleet, or what remained of it, powered down their systems and waited for boarding by the primitives they had so thoroughly underestimated. In the ruins of Denver, Eric Volkov stood among the abandoned alien equipment. Other Ghost Legionnaires emerged from their positions, moving like shadows through the devastation. They had lost only 17 operators out of 300 deployed globally. Each loss a brother or sister who would be honored, but a remarkably small price for defeating a technologically superior force. Wolf, this is Phoenix, Harrison's voice came through his earpiece. Outstanding work. The President wants to award you and your teams. No awards, Volkov interrupted. No recognition. The Ghost Legion remains in the shadows. That's where we're most effective. Understood. What now? Volkov looked up at the stars, where the wreckage of the Galactic Command Fleet drifted like a new constellation. Now? We prepare. This was just one fleet from one galactic power. There will be others, and when they come, they'll know about the Ghost Legion. They'll prepare for us. And? A rare smile crossed the sniper's weathered features. And we'll be something else by then. Something they won't expect. That's what humans do, General. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. In the months that followed, the Galactic Council would review the battle recordings with a mixture of horror and fascination. The mighty Galactic Command, brought low by soldiers using what appeared to be ancient tactics and primitive weapons. But the wiser among them recognized the truth. It wasn't the weapons that made humanity dangerous. It was their ability to take any technology, any situation, any challenge, and find a way to turn it to their advantage. The Ghost Legion returned to the shadows, their existence once again fading into rumor and legend. But across the galaxy, military commanders would check their sensors more carefully, post more guards, and never again stand in the open with careless confidence. Because somewhere in the darkness, patient as death itself, a human sniper might be watching through a scope, waiting for the perfect shot. The Galactic Command had mocked Earth's snipers. They had learned, in the hardest way possible, that when humanity masters something, they don't just practice it, they perfect it, and in the silent reaches between stars, other galactic powers took note. Earth was no longer seen as a primitive backwater, but as something far more dangerous, a world where the art of war had evolved for 50,000 years, where warriors could turn any disadvantage into victory, where death came not with the roar of mighty weapons, but with the whisper of a ghost.